All right. This is exciting. We already did Alex from BrightView, but they said now we've upgraded to Amy, that Amy is going to be even better than Alex. Is this true, Amy, or are you a superior guest to Alex? Alex is pretty good.
So Alex is pretty good. We're the A team at BrightView, so I'm just going to leave it at that. We tend to work in tandem.
So if your guys are the A team, who is Mr. T and who is the cigar smoking man?
I'm a cigar smoker. I'm a cigar smoker anyway, so it's just a natural fit.
Do you smoke cigars?
I absolutely smoke cigars. I'm a huge Drew Estate fan, as well as Deadwood Tobacco, and huge cigar fan.
So I've been trying, this is a really lame thing to say, I've been trying to become a cigar smoker.
Really?
Yeah, I think they're cool.
Yeah, they are cool.
I think cigars are very undeniably cool, much more cool than cigarettes. You know?
Yeah, not so into cigarettes. And people ask me all the time, they're like, how did you get into this? And honestly, I can't even remember how. I mean, it's just, I just picked up a cigar and then started doing some research and learned more about it. And it's a very, it's a cool, every stick is different. There's always something unique about every stick. And so that's, I just enjoy it. I like trying them.
Do you need an occasion to smoke a cigar, or do you just smoke it just whenever?
No, I find that it's just one of the few things I can do that actually relaxes me and allows me to just kind of unwind.
I find that you can use it as leverage too, I would think, at social situations, because as the cigar smoker, you've already kind of established yourself as being the one in charge.
Yeah, the boss hog.
Yeah.
The boss.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Whenever I'm talking to somebody with a cigar, I acquiesce right away. Like,
really? Okay, cool.
For sure.
Cool. I did not know that they had that kind of persona.
And they have connections in the underworld, and connections in the back streets and the back alleys that if you wrong this person, you'll pay.
Yeah, there's an element of that I have found to be true.
When you're talking to a client at BrightView and you're having the cigar, do you find that they're a little bit, that they know that you're nobody to be trifled with, as they say?
No, I don't think that's usually after hours. That's usually after a long day. But I've had a few conversations with clients, and they're like, "Oh, wow, you smoke cigars? You don't look like somebody that would smoke cigars." And I'm like, I also hear I never look like a lesbian, but here we are. So
you've heard that you never look like a lesbian.
Yeah. But here
lesbians in a variety of looks. The 90s beer commercials would have you thinking they all look like Baywatch ladies.
Right.
But then the TLC documentaries would have you thinking they all look like Fred Savage. So I think we know there's a spectrum of lesbian appearance. We shouldn't fit. This is one thing that we pump a lot here on Junkyland, is we should not stereotype, the appearance of lesbians. We talk about this virtually every episode. It's one of the most important messages.
Well, keep putting it out there. That's good to know. Keep those PSAs coming. That's awesome.
I worked at a couple of rehabs, and I always smoked a pipe because it had a kind of mystery solving energy to let them know that, I'll get to the bottom of this.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. You better not be hiding any contraband. Okay. So
I tried to smoke a pipe. I couldn't do it. It was it's too much work or something for me. I don't know. It gets too hot.
Truth be told, when I see somebody smoking a pipe in real life, I just resent them so much.
Yeah.
Like that is such an unnecessary. Just get a cigar or a cigarette like a decent person in the 21st century. Nobody's anymore. Okay.
I may share that sentiment.
Yeah, this is outdated technology. This is the kind of person who probably has a tar that they used to stamp their envelopes that they write with a feather. What is it you do at BrightView?
I actually am the community outreach manager for one of the BrightView sites in Kentucky. I'm a Kentucky native and had the opportunity to come back home and help with the opening of the BrightView site in Henderson, Kentucky, which is a small community in Western Kentucky. And I've enjoyed every minute of it. You know, we're in a community where we are very much needed. There's a tremendous amount of substance use disorder happening everywhere. But one of the things I love about BrightView is that we've really kind of focused our efforts in the Midwest and in those smaller communities that have typically been underserved for those that are struggling. So it's really cool to be back. We've been open for about 5, going into our 6th month, I think. And so,
Okay.
yeah.
So you say, I didn't know that the Midwest has been underserved when it comes to treatment for addiction.
Well, Midwest is so subjective to everyone. What is the Midwest? I would say when we look at Southern Illinois, Kentucky, Western Virginia, that entire region, which once you get that way, it's not so much the Midwest, but however you want to see it. I mean, but we've pretty much, stayed in our lane. And not a huge, we're not trying to be everything to everybody. We're really staying focused in our communities, which is really cool.
I have to say, I was in Kentucky a couple of years ago, and I found your grass to be as green as anybody's. I didn't think it was any bluer than.
Not so blue.
So it was a little misleading.
That is weird. But did you go to Lexington? Did you spend time in Lexington?
No, I was in Louisville, or as Kentuckians say, Louisville, which is
Louisville.
incorrect.
Yeah.
Incorrect.
Louisville. Yeah, there's it's so funny. I was trying to teach somebody the other day how to say that, and it's almost like ingrained in us natives. I mean, it just sounds like we kind of growl that. It's like Louisville.
Yeah.
Louisville.
Well, I think actually the Kentuckians are the ones who have it wrong, and that it is Louisville.
No.
Pretty sure.
I feel that way too, but I have a habit of mispronunciation.
Oh
so.
boy, 2 against 1.
Yeah, well, I do too. But I don't know. I think if you come up against any Kentuckians, they'll challenge you to that. I'm not.
So,
I'll leave it there. Yeah.
do you work directly with the clients? You say the community outreach. What exactly does that entail? Can you go into more detail about what that is?
As a community outreach manager, we have really a great opportunity. Not only are we interacting with our community partners and resources, we do get the chance to interact with the BrightView patients that come in. So our role is to do outreach, just that. It's to share our message and to make sure that folks know that we're here if and when they do decide that they want to do something different in terms of getting into recovery. It's great. I think some of my best days are when I actually, get to interact with a patient. Whether they're having a good day or a bad day, because we know in treatment they every day can be a little bit different, but the best days are when you do get to see someone, or you see them when they first come in, like you see them on that first few days, and you see them in so much pain or just really a wreck, and then a couple of weeks later you get to see them again, and they don't even look like the same person, right? They look completely different. So, and this is a tough time of year for folks. Anyway, I mean, I think it's tough on folks, whether it's whether you're in recovery or not. I think holiday seasons can mean a lot of things to everybody, to do, a little bit different things to everybody.
Well, that actually segues nicely into one of the talking points that Avante provided us. So there are a lot of triggers in the holiday season. What do you think people in recovery, and especially early recovery, can do to reduce exposure to triggers in the holiday season? A lot of alcohol and partying with the families, and it's tricky. You want to spend time with your family, but if there's a lot of booze and Sam is spiking the eggnog, as he was known to do. Yeah.
It's interesting. I was thinking about this. us having this interaction and doing this podcast today. And it reminded me, coming up on December the 2nd, I will have 15 years in recovery from.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, from drugs and alcohol. And I actually spent the holidays in treatment 15 years ago. So it's always kind of what I learned is that, during this time of year, you really have to use whatever tools have been given to you. I mean, you really got to lean into whether that's a 12-step program or whether that's, a great sponsor. And, you got to stay away from those people, places, and things. And that means to me that, yes, we do have obligations, oftentimes during this time of year, to family, friends. But what I learned is you always know what your limit is, know when you're starting to get a little squirrely or know when you're starting to get a little uncomfortable and get out. For so many years in early recovery, I mean, man, I would drive everywhere. I would be like, oh no, I'm not riding with anybody. I'm going to be able to cut out if I need to. I'm still that way a lot of times. I just, I think, more than anything during this time of year, you really have to, protect your recovery.
Yeah, I spent Thanksgiving in treatment as well. Yeah, this was in 2009 when I got clean, and we had a turkey and everything. And one of the counselors took, I was chopping it up with a big Chinese cleaver, and they took it away from me.
Oh yeah.
And I was still going through post-acute withdrawal symptoms.
Sure.
So I just absolutely made myself the victim and had such a childish little meltdown about them taking away my big Chinese cleaver, which they should have done because I was just pulverizing this turkey. But, especially in early recovery, you're in such this precarious spot where your emotions are just so, any little thing can kind of set you off to where you go this death spiral of feeling sorry for yourself and doing this poor me thing, which can be triggered by a family a lot of times, unfortunately, and the people who have your back. Yeah. That's why, as Sam yawns, that's why I think it's so important to offer the family and friends and the support system like an education too, that they get an education on being around people in recovery and having loved ones in recovery. Does BrightView do anything like that?
We certainly try at every interaction with the patients that we have at BrightView is certainly continuously put tools in their hands and find out, if, how are you feeling around this time of year? Are there certain things that, maybe you're nervous or stressed out about, and try to, say, hey, here's something, it's okay. One of the things I learned early on was that, we all have families of origin, right? I mean, we all have families of origin, but that doesn't mean that you can't also have a family of choice. And for all those of us in recovery, that family of choice sometimes is very, very critical and very key to us. And so, knowing that, reminding them that it's okay to say, you know what, man, I'm not going to be able to make it this year. And yeah, is it going to upset some people? Absolutely, probably. But, they tell us, and I still have to be reminded of this, anything that we place before our recovery, we're going to lose it ultimately anyway. I mean, if anything we place in front of our recovery, we're going to lose. So, you mentioned that you were in treatment over Thanksgiving. I actually was in treatment over the Christmas holiday, and I had a baby at home. I had a young daughter at home during this time. And, I was like, oh man, I can't be in treatment over Christmas. I have a small child at home, like Santa's got it, you know, we've got Santa Claus, we've got all this stuff. And, you know, as that addict alcoholic, I think I'm at that time thinking, oh my God, I'm so important. Like this family deal can't, this whole holiday can't happen if I'm not there. And you know what happened? It happened just fine. It happened just fine without me there. Okay. And it was a good learning experience for me to realize that, you know, we think we put so much emphasis on the season, and in so many ways it's very important. For, you know, whatever your personal beliefs are, whatever. But the fact is, for those of us in recovery, this is a very triggering time of year. If we don't keep our sobriety and our recovery as a priority, we're gambling again, right? We're playing again. So seems like
I think people in early recovery really overestimate themselves quite a lot, and what they can take on, and maybe underestimate how important it is to really put your life on hold and handle your shit. I mean, really put your life on hold. What you said about whatever you put before your recovery, you're going to lose. What it reminds me of is when you're on a flight and the flight attendant is giving you the pre-flight warning, and they say, when the air mask drops down, put yours on first and then put your kids on, because you're not going to help your kid or anybody around you if you're not breathing. Right. That's what I compare early recovery. All right. You can't really get shit done. You can't be of any use to anybody until you handle your own business first. And that might take a little while.
Yeah, but you know, to your point, I can't help but think every time I'm on a plane, I always ask the flight attendants if I could just have a little. Now, this is spoken as a you know, again, we get sober, but our minds are still very much addict, alcoholic, and I always ask the flight attendant if I could just have a little hit of that oxygen just before we take off, just, you know, to kind of level set the flight. You know, I'm like, can we just drop it down for just a moment and just take a little bit? And,
there should be an airline that advertises that, the party.
You know, I would totally fly that airline all the time if they did that.
Yeah.
I mean, just like complimentary oxygen, just for, you know, before takeoff.
So did you have any pushback from family and friends in the holidays in your first year or two in recovery?
You know,
With you.
You know, and I'm trying to like make myself remember, you know, that time, because thank God it's, you know, I've had a few years in there. But
the pit of despair that is their lives, and taking me back, like I was that person, you know.
Absolutely.
I was Sam 5 months clean.
Oh, Sam's looking pretty good. I think
Sam's doing good. Sam's working a good program.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's just touching on what you were saying a little bit too. It's kind of precarious learning how to navigate. It's like the model of living in a program like AA is very much, you know, centered around service and doing things for other people, in addition to sort of, you know, standing your ground and being able to communicate to people your needs and what's going to be best for you. And it's for someone like me I'm like very prone to black and white modes of thought, and sort of, you know, and so it's been interesting or difficult for me specifically to navigate sort of like, even with the situation with, you know, my girlfriend and the discussion about whose family to spend the holidays with and things like that. I almost feel like I'm not, you know, I'm not, like, I'd be selfish to say like I can't do that right now, you know. But I do think that I think that's kind of where, at least for something like AA, where something like sponsorship or mentorship of some sort becomes important, so someone else can kind of help you to navigate that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and you're taking a lot in your early recovery. I've always felt that. I think your girl is great, and it's awesome that you're killing it in school and you're working a program, but you're definitely taking on more than recommended load for somebody in early recovery. You know what I mean? So yeah, I hope you do have a lot of
like I said, I always went back to that escape route. I mean, it was fine to go. I mean, it was just that there had to be kind of an agreement on the front end of this that, look, I'm going to do this. I don't know that I feel really comfortable about it, but, can we just kind of come up with a plan that, here's kind of the magic word or whatever. And then I'm going to need to go. And it's nothing personal. I think sometimes people that deal with us in recovery, who don't really get it, so to speak, take a lot of, and human beings do this, not just that, but we are talking about recovery. It's not personal, right? I mean, it was never personal that I couldn't go to my father's house. I mean, I loved him very much, but again, I always had a plan. Like I was going to stay for this long if I could, and then I was out. And I doubled up on a lot of meetings and stuff during the holidays. I mean, I just started it again. I mean, I was at a meeting Friday night. I was at a meeting yesterday. I'm 15 years clean, sober. We don't like to use necessarily the word clean, but I'm still kind of back to the basics. But that's what we have to do.
Yeah. My dishwasher is beeping. I'm going to let Sam take over for about 1 minute. Oh boy, Sam, here you
go.
Cool. Yeah. One thing that I also like, I think it can be hard to communicate to people, because I think I heard someone else say this once, that they were looking around at like their friends and family who were drinking, and they were envious of the fact that they were able to drink with impunity, and like their addict mind kind of led them immediately to believe that was like that they were getting sort of their serenity and stuff from the alcohol that they were drinking. And that's where addicts are different, because like they had that serenity, it had nothing to do with the alcohol or the drugs or whatever. But
right.
In the minds of people with with our disease or whatever, it's easy to so it can be hard sometimes to communicate like this sense of loss almost that accompanies getting clean. Like it's good, you get your sanity back, and you're finally able to establish a mode of living that enables you to do like anything. But it also it feels like kind of like a ghost swim almost for the first little while.
I still would love to have a holiday cocktail. Everybody's going to holiday parties and that's still, I mean, that's in us. I mean, I sure like to have a drink with friends and family over the holidays. But what I am reminded of is I always have to play that tape all the way through to okay, so let's say I have a drink with Dad on Christmas. I don't know how to act when I put that stuff in my system, right? I have no clue. Somebody asked me one time, can you predict how you're going to act if you put a substance or alcohol into your system? And I thought about this. I mean, I was like, okay, let me think about this. Like, can I predict what's going to happen? And the honest answer is no, I cannot. All I know is that I don't ever really know when to stop. And I'm very unpredictable. And as much as it still pains me a little bit today to say it, I mean, I lost my grown-up right, if you will, to drink. I mean, I don't have that privilege like other people. And that addict alcoholic in me would say, want to play that victim, like, oh, that is really sad. I lost this, this privilege to do what grown-up people do. But the fact is, we got to go back to the disease of addiction. The fact that our brain chemistry is not the same as another person's. Our body chemistry. I don't even want to say that brain. I want to say body chemistry, because studies have shown that those of us that struggle with the disease of addiction, you put a substance in our body, whether it's an illicit substance or alcohol, and it does not it has a different effect on us than it does someone that is not not predisposition to addiction, or is not in addiction.
Yeah, there was a great line from The Sopranos, which we all know is one of the cornerstones of any good recovery program, to view The Sopranos.
Absolutely, right.
And Michael was recovering, in early recovery. He was a heroin addict. And one of his mob buddies wanted to, invite him to a party and have some wine. He said, no, I can't drink wine either. And he's like, yo, is it really that fucking hard for you to be normal? And he said, for some of us, yeah, it is. A lot of wisdom from The Sopranos.
A lot of wisdom.
Goes on to kill his sponsor later on in the
Spoil it for me or anything. Yeah. It's not like I'm only on season 3 and haven't finished, Sam, you unbelievable piece of shit.
Right?
Well, Bob, I'm on the path to relapse now. Thank you very much. I want to talk about a little bit when you said we don't like to say clean. I've always been interested in the word choices. When I was very, very early in my recovery, I was going to an AA, even though heroin was my DOC. Holla, give it up for heroin.
Big H.
Yep. And an NA convention wanted to hire me to come and do stand-up for them. I started doing stand-up just a few months after I got clean. And awesome. I told him I got about a year sober. And then he said, we don't say sober here. Say whatever you want, but we don't say sober. And I was like, wow, interesting. And then I've heard folks say they don't like the word clean. What is your preference, and why?
I think what again, this is kind of based in the philosophy of BrightView, and I really prescribe to it because I see it firsthand in a lot of the communities that we serve. There's still so much stigma around substance use disorder. I mean, people still, I don't care where you are, I don't care how much money you have or what you don't have. Some people still look at those of us that have struggled or are struggling with addiction as junkies. You know what I mean? Like, we're no good, we're untrustworthy, we use dirty needles, we're just kind of at the lower rung of the human race. And it disturbs me so much, because some of the best people I've ever met are people in our programs and people that walk through the doors of BrightView. And I think it's so awesome that you do comedy and tie it into recovery. I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, because there is a lot of funny stuff that goes on in our journeys. But breaking down the stigmas around substance use is something I'm very passionate about, something BrightView is very passionate about. And so we just kind of try to err away from words like clean, dirty, because, for instance, if I have diabetes, that's a disease, right? I've got the disease of diabetes. You're going to call me dirty just because I've got diabetes or I've got heart disease? I don't think so. That's not acceptable. It's not acceptable in any other realm except when we look at those struggling with substance use disorder. And it's just, something that I think all of us can work toward. I'm sorry, my dog is like. Oh, is
that your dog? Okay.
It's like choking. I mean, I'm like, dude, what is going on? But that's again something that we work really hard in BrightView. The people that are coming to us, and you guys see this. You mentioned it too, Andy. When people first come into the rooms, they're broken. They're hurting. They, the last thing that you want to hear is that, oh, you're not clean. Did that answer that? I mean, it's all around stigma.
It absolutely answered it, and the stigma is still such a huge thing. I wouldn't even describe addicts as being marginalized. I would describe them as being rejects.
Yeah, for sure.
In society, like. There's marginalized people, and then there's people beyond being marginalized. And they would describe as rejects, and drug addicts are right there. When people talk about the increase in, John Oliver had a great piece about the increase in homelessness because of COVID. And when everybody talks about homelessness, they talk about it through the prism of what it's like to witness homelessness, and never what is it like to be the person who is struggling, might be struggling with addiction and is homeless. That's the thing that's not talked about, not discussed. And there is still such a kind of not in my backyard attitude.
Oh, geez, yes.
When I went to treatment, it was a residential treatment center in Kaysville, Utah. And it was around Halloween. And it was a brand new treatment center, and it was right in the suburbs. And all of the moms in the neighborhood protested and picketed the treatment center that was in their neighborhood. They got their kids to dress up as goblins and got them in their Halloween costumes with signs that said, "What's spookier than Halloween? Cold Creek Wellness Center." That was the name of the facility. Yes. And the news was interviewing one of these women, and she said, "You know, we're happy to support you, happy to help you find any other place, but it just shouldn't be here." I'm like, wow, that really crystallizes the attitude that so many people have. They want to use their words to say they support and they care, but in reality, they don't want these people in their. I hate to come here or anything like this, but I think that attitude is still so entrenched and strong that people don't want to witness or see addiction and the suffering that goes along with addiction, out of sight, out of mind. And that's why I think it's so on us, people in recovery, to help, because we get it. We have an obligation. You know, it's on us to help.
It is. It is. And, you know, a lot of the patients that come to us at BrightView are homeless. I mean, they're living on the streets. They you know, they're so one of the things, and again, it's about embracing. You know, you hear this all the time, and you hear it in the treatment world all the time too. You know, when we meet people where they are, you know. Well, you know, meeting people where they are doesn't mean that they're coming from a middle class or upper middle class type of setting sometimes, even though, you know, we know the disease of addiction doesn't discriminate, but the population that we tend to find ourselves working with are the ones that are homeless or haven't been to a primary care doctor in 3 years or something. And you've really got to start. Addiction takes us down, right? I mean, it takes us down. And what you've got to do is to start to build people back up. And it does take all of us. I don't know about you, but I certainly tried to do it alone, and it didn't work out real well for me. I had to surround myself with people, whether it was the holidays or whatever, with people that would build me up and hold that space for me, regardless of how I was showing up. Regardless. I mean, we know this is a very, I hate to say it, but, it's a very high relapse disease that we live with. And, the person who relapses, you don't have to tell them that they bottomed out again. They already know. They already know. You don't have to say, "Oh, Amy, you're at the bottom here." We know that. So you've got to kind of try to start to build them back up. And that's why you meet them where they are. And, we do try to go the extra mile. And not only, and I think all of us can attest to this as well, those of us with addiction issues usually bring some baggage, some other bags along with us, in addition to that disease of addiction. We've got maybe joblessness or homelessness or definitely financial issues and all of this stuff. And you've got to be there to support that person on all of those fronts. Because if you're not, you're only addressing part of the problem. You're only addressing part of the problem.
I say we all go around the table, share as much as you're comfortable with, and talk about, we don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about. Let's preface it with that, on what accompanied the addiction. Okay. I'll go first. So with me, it was always feeling like an outsider. I came up in Utah. I came up LDS Mormon. And I never it never really jived with me from when I was a little kid. You know, everybody would go up every Sunday and they would bear their testimony and talk about how they know all of this is true. And they felt the spirit and I'm not talking shit on Mormons, okay? They were there for me in my recovery. I love them. My family is Mormon. But some of my earliest memories were just feeling like an outsider and feeling like I have to fake it and I have to put something on to fit in, you know, and I couldn't really be honest, whether it be like it's my personality, my beliefs, and you know, the drug use was really incidental, and that helped with that a lot. You know, first of all, I felt like I belonged with other druggies. Secondly, I felt so good that I didn't mind living a lie, you know, and coming to terms with kind of who I am, what my views are, what I believe, was a big thing for me. So, you know, I would say my trauma, and that might be a strong word, I can't think of another one, that led to the addiction was just that always feeling like an outsider, and then never being able to be present because of that, never being able to be in the moment because of always feeling like such an outsider. And when you can't be present and when you can't be in the moment, you run, and you do something else. Some people become workaholics, some people become drug addicts, but running from the moment like that. What do you think yours is, Sammy?
Well, for me, I mean, like I struggled with depression from the time that I was really young. Like my family wasn't LDS, or they were like on the fringe, and everyone else around me was, so I can relate to that a little bit. But for the most part, I think the reason that I was so ecstatic about drugs and alcohol when I started using and drinking was just the fact that I just felt like, I mean, the chronic feelings of emptiness. I also found it like impossible to be in the moment. But yeah, really, I mean, the first time I ever felt comfortable or like I belonged where I was in that moment was the first time I drank, for sure. And yeah, I mean, for me, it boiled down to just being able to sit with myself, being in my own skin, feeling comfortable in my own skin. I had pretty severe dysmorphia that wasn't really gender-based, but I think I just wanted to die, honestly, like when I was a kid. And I just had no solution to the depression. No one in my family or no one I knew struggled with that in that way. So it was really jarring when drugs and alcohol stopped working, you know?
Yeah.
That was something. Yeah, that was something I anticipated happening. But yeah, I started having psychotic breaks from the speed I was taking, and you know, bouts of pancreatitis, and it just was like, this wasn't supposed to backfire.
Yeah.
But
well, and they're only masking
yeah,
what the real issue is.
Yeah, and I mean,
they're not tackling it.
Yeah, and with only
saving drugs and alcohol,
for sure.
Yeah.
And with only 5 months clean, I'm already at a point where I feel more like recovery has already started to do for me what substance never ever could or did, which is like I am starting to like myself, for lack of a better, you know, or just even I have a better sense of who I am really and who I was all along beneath because there was a time where I remember one time it was like a running joke for a while because like the cocktail of substances that I tended to be on at all times throughout my 20s was like I was always smoking weed and I was always on amphetamines and I was always drinking. And there was a night where a bunch of comics were hanging out and one of our good friends took an Adderall and smoked weed and was drinking, but he never did that other stuff. And basically we became like the same person for like a couple hours. Like he was doing weird, like down to some of like his like kicks that he was displaying and stuff. And everyone was like, oh, Sam, you're just like your whole personality is just like a product of the drugs that you're taking.
Wow.
And it was like a really weird
moment of clarity.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Wow. But so it's, yeah, recovery's been cool because I have a better idea of, you know, what like who I am as a person and and more equipped to deal with some of the underlying issues than I ever was.
But, awesome. What about you, Amy?
I think about, underlying issues. We could do a whole podcast on religious trauma, probably. I mean, as far as that goes, early childhood trauma, I think that was not addressed for me was a big driver. That early childhood trauma really set the stage for me to shut down feelings. And that was one of the reasons that I used, was because I really just wanted to feel good. I did not like to feel anything but good. And the substances allowed me to numb and to not feel anything. So, early childhood trauma, I think a strong genetic predisposition to addiction, which I still see, as I mentioned, very, very much my family origin. And then depression. I mean, I certainly struggled with depression and still do today. I mean, which was not something that was diagnosed until well into my, late 20s. And then I didn't get into recovery until I was 36 years old. And so, I was out there for a long time. The thing that, and I think one of the things I love about our recovery communities is that, and you hear it a lot, and Sammy, you said it, and is the fact that, we struggle with being in our own skin sometimes. And my sexuality played a huge role in that. I mean, hell, I didn't know who I was and was scared to death that, once I figured out who I was, to tell anybody who I was. And I've been, probably 3 or 4 years sober before I ever, decided, like it says on the back of the chips, to thine own self be true. And I always go back to that. Because it is such a cornerstone to having sustainable recovery, is to thine own self be true. And so, if this situation makes me uncomfortable, I gotta be okay with saying that and get myself out of that situation. If I've got, we learn to lie to, my sponsor told me one time, I've had the same sponsor for 15 years. And when I first came into recovery, she goes, "You are such a liar." And I was like, me? A liar? I mean, I am not a liar. I mean, I'm as blunt can be. She said, "You lie to yourself all the time." And the fact is, she was right. We lie to ourselves all the time. And so today, just being true to myself and not lying to myself and going, there's, not feeling good about this or that. It's almost, for me, recovery has helped me find my voice. And sometimes that self-talk, sometimes it's me talking to Amy, but it's also helped me find my voice to be able to do something like this, which if I were using, I'd be all down with this. I'd be like, "Oh God, yeah, this is so cool, man. I'm gonna be on a podcast and I'm on the road to fame." And, is what my magical magnifying mind will tell me.
Yeah.
But, today I can just kind of show up and be in my skin and maybe try to help somebody else.
I love it. Hell yeah, Amy. We're coming up on an hour. First, I just want to say I'm really glad that you're out there doing your thing.
Thank you. You too.
Very, very grateful for you, and that people like you are out there. And thanks so much for doing this podcast. One thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap it up, though, is that Devontae suggested we touch on, and I like it, is folks who let finances stop them from getting into treatment. What do you do as a community outreach person? Like, what do you say exactly?
Well, finances are always a barrier. It seems like that's just, you hear that all the time. The thing is, what we try to encourage people to do is put that aside. Let's put the finances on the back burner right now. Let's talk about what's going on with you, and we'll figure out the financial part. I tell people it's like a puzzle, but the first thing you've got to do is help the person who is seeking help. That's first. That's your first priority. So if you are struggling or know someone who's struggling, and that conversation comes up that finances are a barrier. I mean, we know that's true, but at BrightView, finances are not a barrier to someone seeking treatment. We're going to work with them regardless of whether or not they have financial needs or not. And that's another beautiful thing about this program that I get to tell people. I get to share that message. And there's not a lot of places out there that can do that. Now, whether that's they have nothing and we're going to end up just scholarshiping them into treatment, that's an option. Sometimes it's just, again, it's a barrier of they just don't know how to maybe get benefits that would help cover their treatment. So our case managers work with them to get those benefits if they're out there. The thing that I tell people is these are baby steps, right? And we're going to go through each one of those baby steps together. But finances definitely don't need to be an issue for anyone seeking help.
Yeah, well, and it's a fair question.
It's a fair question. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are opening up treatment centers left and right that for the sole reason of making money. They're not necessarily in it to help people into recovery. I mean, you probably can name some, I can name some, but I think the ones that are in it for the right reasons and the ones that are really going to be there at the end of the day are the ones that are doing it from a place of service, knowing that we are dealing with a disease and that and I say that addiction is almost like the pandemic, that we've been living with for a long time. We talk about COVID, ad infinitum, and I'm sick of talking about COVID, but addiction is almost a pandemic in and of itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's increased a lot the last year too.
Oh, just in Kentucky, we've seen overdoses increase 46% over last year.
Holy shit.
That's just in the state of
They were
Kentucky.
through the roof before the 46% increase.
Correct.
I mean, I remember I heard it's something like 100,000 a year now. That is insane. 400,000 died in the entirety of World War II.
Holy shit.
Yeah. And as communities and as people in recovery, we've got to keep talking about these things, whether it's the holidays or whether it's, it doesn't matter. We've got to continue to take those messages out there. And I just want to stress one final thing is, and particularly as we are getting into the holidays, is, and I think BrightView will support this, no one has to die because of the disease of addiction.
Yeah.
No one has to die because of the disease of addiction.
Your rock bottom doesn't have to be death.
No, it doesn't. It's happening too much, but you're right. It does not have to be death. I know this is supposed to be funny, but sometimes, addiction is, sometimes, it can be funny. There's funny things, but we're still talking about human lives. Yeah,
this podcast, this episode was kind of encapsulates what this podcast is. There was funny stuff in it, but that's not all of what it is.
That's awesome.
I think there's a lot of comedy in addiction. I'm a big believer in being able to laugh at addiction, even the most horrific parts of addiction.
Right.
But you can believe two things at once and know that there's a room for, these real conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you for letting me be a part. This is really awesome.
Well, thank you for doing it, Amy, and I'm happy you're out there. It was just my sincere pleasure to meet you. And awesome.
You as well. Sammy, it's awesome to meet you too. You keep doing the deal and best of luck through the holidays.
Yeah, you as well. Thank you so much.
Gonna stop right now. All right, Amy. Take care, okay?
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, that's the end of it. That was great.
Is that okay?
That was great.
Okay,
cool. That was really, really good. I liked it a lot. So thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what part of Kentucky you in again? Lexington?
Western Kentucky. I'm about 2.5 hours from Lexington. So That Lexington kind of sits in the central part of the state. I'm more northwestern part of the state. So I'm in. Have you heard of Owensboro, Kentucky?
Mm-mm.
No, probably not. So we'll just stick with Louisville and Lexington. I'm about 2 hours from there. I actually am in Indiana. I live in Indiana. Right off Kentucky and Indiana, separated by the Ohio River. So
Okay.
I'm right on the river.
I was in Louisville 3 or 4 years ago doing my recovery show there, and I'm going to go back sometime. So yeah, I know it's a bit of a drive, but yeah, if you could make it, it would be awesome. It'd be great.
I would love it. Can we possibly try to stay in touch? And I'd like to pick your brain about something just offline, you know.
Absolutely.
Being mindful of your time, but still pick your brain.
For sure. Add me on Facebook and send me a message, shoot me your number, and we can talk.
I think I did start following you on Facebook. I will shoot you a message and get you my contact information too. So, and the email that I have on you is good. I mean, that's a good email as far as what Avante's been sharing with us.
Yep, I can do that too.
All right.
All right. Take care.
You guys take care. Talk to you later. Happy holidays. Bye.
You too.